but it can also affect the organization as well. And the way it can affect the organization is through reduced lost productivity, because what happens when people aren't focused in on the job and they're more concerned about themselves, how does that affect morale? Yeah, their morale goes down. And when their morale goes down, then what happens? Well, productivity kind of follows closely behind that, because those two things are really tied together. All right? So if those are the times that that's going to happen, then we also see that if people aren't focused in on their jobs, this is also the opportunity for what, safety-wise? Because they're not focusing on the job, so now they're not going to be paying attention, making sure they're following the right procedures and things like that, so they're more likely to get injured at the same time. These things are going to have an effect, and a financial effect on the organizations, your organizations. And it can happen anywhere and any time. These are the ones that we see, right? This is, I could have gone in last night and added South Carolina to this one as well. But it does happen in the state of Montana. The possibilities are there, okay? So I don't think we should look at it and say, we're safe because, you know, we're in Montana and we do things differently here. We have the same, we have maybe a little less stress here because of the places that we live, but we still have the same types of businesses, and I know that people are stressed, okay? So I wanted to bring this back, though, and say, okay, let's take it out of the media's hands and let's look at some actual things that happen that don't necessarily make the national media. The vault incident, this happened in 2009. A lady was put in charge of a financial institution, and so what she did was she said, okay, she started looking at things. They were handling money. They had a vault. She noticed that the books weren't adding up, and she also noticed that she had one individual that was isolated and worked out by himself. And so she kind of focused in on that. She kind of started getting the indication that this guy was maybe siphoning money off the top. So she decided, well, we'll bring him in with everyone else and have him sit with everyone else. That way, maybe that will prevent that from happening. So he begged her, don't move my desk, don't move my desk, please don't move my desk. And she said, no, we're moving your desk, and that's just all that's going to happen. So on the day that his desk was supposed to be moved, he came in and he said, oh, I found a problem in the vault. And she said, okay. So they went in the vault and he closed the door on her and turned off the light. Now, nothing really physically happened, right? Because they got her out of there. She had enough oxygen, but you understand that some of those vaults are not easy to get back open again once they're locked. But they were able to get her out. Didn't happen anything physically, but what do you think her psychological and her emotional being was like at that point? It could have. It certainly could have ended that way. Okay, so again, it's just the person, how the severity and how that person reacts to that severity. Florida Marine contractor harassing his people, sexually harassing his women workers. And so eventually, you know, one of the ladies got tired of it and she reported it. So he retaliated and held back some of her pay and did some other things, put him in violation with the Whistleblower Act, and so he was actually prosecuted on that, and now he owes much more money to her. Eventually, she ended up having to quit because of that. So again, it wasn't anything physical, it was just that emotional, that psychological angle of it that had an effect with it, okay? So then you look at this Hawaii Police Department. Now, wait a minute, police department, isn't their very job description dealing with workplace violence to a certain extent? Kind of like, you know, playing in the NFL and playing on the line, isn't it? If you're working in a police department, obviously you better figure that you're going to be dealing with people that aren't going to react right, because they're not always dealing with the best people within our society. This was actually happened between the cops, though. They had a couple incidences, and it was at the shooting range. They actually had one cop where he got so mad at the other one that he actually threw a forearm into the chest of the other one. And then shortly after that, they had another guy that brandished a gun on the shooting range. So they actually had to tackle him and take the gun away from him. He didn't shoot anybody. The last one up here, this is actually an OSHA citation. This was the Brooksdale Hospital and Medical Center, and I believe it's either New York or somewhere in Connecticut. But anyway, situation was that they weren't protecting their people, and of course they had people coming in, and the nurses and the staff were getting punched and hit and pushed around and things like that. They were complaining to management. Obviously management says, listen, there's nothing we can do about this. You're just going to have to suck it up, Buttercup, and live with these conditions. And what ended up happening, or it culminated in the fact that one of the nurses was actually knocked to the ground, and before they could get a hold of this guy, he actually kicked her about 6 times in the head. So she ended up with some brain damage out of this and some other health conditions. And what they ended up doing was actually citing the company for like $170,000 was the fine from OSHA. So OSHA is focused on it, and they are passing out some fines dealing with these kind of things. Okay. So what do you think so far? Does this make sense to you? When we look at just this portion of it, what exactly it is and how it can kind of different aspects? Because I don't want us to focus just on one classification, which is like the active shooter or something. I want to focus in on all of those things that can be workplace violence.